What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Musings podcast studio. Today, I am very excited to be joined by Mr. Mahmud Asrar. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, James. Nice to be here.
Awesome to have you. And I always tell people I encourage them to watch the video version of the podcast because 9 times out of 10, people have cool stuff on display behind them. So I'm already
Right.
noticing the Star Wars figures, some awesome artwork in the background. You're a fellow Star Wars fan like me, I can tell.
I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan. I've always loved the Star Wars stuff ever since I was a kid. Growing up, I collected the toys and everything.
Nice.
And this has been one of my vices, getting the Hot Toys figures.
It's dangerous, man.
It is. It
And, and
is.
and there's so many of them, and they're all beautiful. You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
some
They're really well
original
made. Yeah.
you have some original trilogy stuff in there, and some of the newer stuff. Like, what era of Star Wars are you the most fond of? Do you just love all Star Wars, or is there one that holds more of a special place in your heart?
Obviously, I like the original trilogy the most. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie,
Yeah,
and among
amazing.
all of them. And it's probably like the boring answer, but still, that's that's the truth. But I do
Yeah,
like all the movies. I mean, I find good stuff in all movies. Like something out of the prequels and also the sequels.
yeah, same
For
here.
example, yeah, I like the Rey and Kylo stuff. The new movies. They are flawed movies, but still, I do find enjoyment out.
Yeah, it's not going to be perfect, especially for those of us that are fans of the original, because
Right.
we're comparing, to those feelings when we were in that age range and everything and the way it made us feel. So it's such a unrealistic expectation to live up to, I think. I try to go into the new stuff with an open mind and just, remind myself that when I was younger, could you ever imagine that we were going to have this much Star Wars, new content coming out all the time? I think it's
Oh
a
yeah.
it's a real blessing.
It is. It is. I find I never complain about this stuff. Like I know people seem to sometimes think that the new stuff will ruin their enjoyment of the older stuff, but I don't. I'm not of the same mind. I think the originals are always there for me. I still enjoy them the way I did,
Yeah.
and like I try to find something good out of the newer ones. If they're for me, I like them, and that's good. If it's not something to my liking, that's fine too. Maybe some other person will enjoy it.
Exactly. There's going to be something for everybody, right?
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
Well, this is not a Star Wars podcast, even though it
Right.
often comes up. Actually, this is a everything podcast, but a lot of times I'm on here with amazing artists like yourself. So I wanted to chat a little bit about your start in comics and kind of. So I make an assumption based on you have such a mastery of the human form and anatomy. I'm making the assumption that you are classically trained, so to speak, in that you did a lot of figure drawing and that type of stuff and have some formal training in art. Is my assumption correct, or are you somebody that is all self-taught off of YouTube videos like some of the people nowadays?
Well, yeah, you're right in the sense that I did get an education, although my education came in later compared to some, I would say, because I started studying, like getting the art education around when I was about 17 years old when I started university. I studied graphic design for a little bit and then I studied animation. And as you said, I did a lot of life drawing
Yeah.
during those times. And it was one of the most important things in teaching me about seeing. Like I think
Yes.
drawing and it's a lot of requires a lot of perception and like a lot of seeing how things are and how shapes relate to each other and stuff.
Right.
And in that regard, life drawing and modeling, clay modeling and making statues and stuff, those really opened my eyes to actually improving my drawing skills. I feel
Yeah, you're able to turn the form in your brain
right.
within 3D space and have more of an ability to draw those tough angles and know how something looks from different vantage points and everything. I find that's, me as an amateur artist, that's always one of the hardest things is Okay, I know what a character looks like from this angle, but what if I shoot the camera from down here and we're looking up? How do things distort? How do things overlap and change? So, yeah, definitely life drawing. And then, like you said, with the sculpting, that's something I've always wanted to get into because I always got the impression that would help make that connection in the brain of being able to see the forms better in put them on a 2D plane, but make them look three-dimensional.
Right. I think it's really important. I mean, because otherwise, uh, you draw from your memory, and your memory always is limited and can, uh, stray from what you really want to do. So, learning to draw from real life actually teaches you to see things as they are and without interpreting that onto the paper with your mind, but rather with what you see. So, like, it's really important to understand how that is in real life and not what's in your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, otherwise you have this imagination of a foot or a hand or whatever, and then you draw it, and it becomes almost like a like a representation of something
Yeah.
other than what it could and should be. So,
I
life
remember
drawing.
Jim Lee talking about that in some interview or on his Twitch where he was talking about you're drawing the symbol of an eye, but you're not actually drawing what the form of an eye looks like because you're
Right.
bringing it from your memory, but you're not capturing all the different dimensionality and everything of it.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. I feel, yeah, because otherwise, yeah, of course, we do over time find our own ways to interpret what we see in real life, even if you have like one of the most abstract styles or whatever. Understanding what it is in real life, how it should look, really helps with the foundation of what you want to do in art. So,
Yeah.
uh, whoever it is, and whatever point in their career or life they are, I really suggest life drawing, and it's it's the best teacher, I would say.
Awesome. Well, were comics in your blood from a young age? I know Star Wars was, but how
Yeah.
about comic books? What was your first experience discovering comics? And I always ask, did you kind of know that that was something you wanted to explore later in life, or was it just something you did to escape and have fun looking at the art, or how did that all develop for you?
Well, yeah, comics were all around me. Yeah, growing up, like one of the earliest comic-related memories I have was probably around when I was 4 years old, and my parents both worked, so we had to. Somebody was taking care of us, and in their house, I remember they wanted to keep us busy with all these comics and stuff.
Oh,
And
nice.
I remember like sitting on the floor and having comics all around me, literally on the floor,
Oh, that's
all kinds of
amazing.
stuff. So I mean, so I kind of got that poison in my blood back in the day, and so it never left. So it waxed and waned, and like it changed all over the years. So like I lost a little bit of interest, came back, but it always was around. And when I was in my later teens, I took this a bit more seriously. I always drew as well. So like I always wanted to have a career in drawing, illustration, or painting, or making comics or something. But around my late teens, I decided I really wanted to do comics. So that's what I fixed my brain to do, and everything I
Nice.
did was like in that direction.
Who were some of the artistic standouts? Some people that you really gravitated towards when you were picking up the comics.
Uh, I mean, the first comic book artist that I recognized was John Buscema from the
Oh,
Conan books,
amazing!
and
Yeah, it's funny because I see a lot of him in your work, so that's really cool that you say that.
I feel it's still there. Yeah, it was really in my earlier like years. It was all obviously I was trying to emulate his stuff. Was a smaller, younger kid and stuff,
Yeah,
but it came back later on as well. Like especially when I was starting Conan
that's
stuff
what I was gonna say.
a
You
few
actually
years
got to
ago.
work on Conan. Yeah,
Yeah, and I did look back a lot about what John Buscema did, and I guess that influence resurrected itself in my art, and like I think it might be visible as well still now.
Yeah, it definitely is. I can definitely see it in your figures and your anatomy and how you spot your blacks and all of that. So that's really, really neat to hear that I was right. Because I always look at somebody's art and I'm like, I wonder who they were, who put their impression on them. So I could see
Right.
some Buscema in there. Yeah, I've been following your work since even more obscure. I have like your whole run on Dynamo 5.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's how
Yeah.
long I've been following your work. So
Oh, thank you so much. It
yeah,
really means a lot.
I was actually going
Yeah.
through organizing my personal collection not long ago, and I found all of those, and I was like, oh, cool. This is perfect timing. I'm having him on the podcast, and I found all the comics. So, hey, that was really strong work. I know that's your earlier work, and I know how artists are. Even myself is a very amateur one. Like when we see older stuff, we probably cringe a little bit, but
Oh, yeah.
that stuff still holds up to this day. That was a long time ago though, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. We started doing that around 2006, so it's
Yeah,
almost 20 years now.
that's
Uh,
crazy.
so so yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, it's my first creator-owned, I mean, official, like professional creator-owned book from Image Comics with Jay Ferber. We had a blast on that book. Taught me a lot, and as you said, it's way back, so I was learning on the job. So when I look back, I feel I can see all the mistakes and everything that I did back then. So,
Yeah,
so it feels a bit more difficult for me to look at it, but I appreciate it for what it is, and I usually try to accept my previous work as what they are, and
right,
I try to make peace with it. And it actually, uh, I think I was posting about this a little while ago. I was saying I looked at some of my work over the years, and uh, in my eyes, I would see the progression towards being a better artist over the years, and that actually helped me mentally to see that
yeah,
I made this progress over the years. So like that I became a better artist, and nothing was in vain and stuff.
right, right.
So it's good to look back sometimes.
Yeah, it's good to reflect. I'm sure you find yourself, especially at this point in your career, you I'm sure you get into a routine of making deadlines and just going through and doing the work. So you probably don't have a lot of time to go back and reflect. I'm sure it's kind of like a whirlwind.
Well, it is. It is. It's interesting point in my uh, career and work schedule right now. After I decided not to renew my contract with Marvel. I was with them for about 9 years, and of course, during that time, I mean, I never uh, stopped, and I kept on working all the time, and like my schedule and deadlines were acceptable in terms of, I mean, they weren't too difficult, but
Right.
like I was working very systematically. But like now I'm doing my own book and stuff, and this time around we have the luxury of actually like spending time to make this thing a bit more as we want, and without with the luxury of like having to fix stuff or like change things along the way.
Yeah.
So that was a nice change of pace for me. So it's a blessing and a curse in a way, because when you have deadlines, you have to abide by it, and then you progress. When
Yeah.
you don't have a deadline, you let go sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned learning on the job with Dynamo 5, like that has to be tough to, cuz you want to get in there and make everything as perfect as possible, but at the same time, it's like there's what was the quote? Finished, not perfect. Was
Right.
it like trying to let go and move on from the work and do the next thing better instead of dwelling on the mistake of the last thing? Like it sounds to me like you're able to do that. I know a lot of artists struggle with that and we'll redo a page a couple of times and stuff. I don't think you're afforded that luxury though when you're trying to meet a deadline, right? You have to find that point where it's like, okay, it's done. I'm going to forget about it. Like in basketball, they say forget your last shot. Like whether you
Right.
made it or you missed it, like forget about it, move on to the next one. Is that kind of your approach?
I think that's golden advice to anybody, like especially in comics, because as you said, like most comics are, like very uh, reliant on time schedules and everything. So like we have to do stuff in certain times, and as you said, we have to come to terms with what you do and how things end up. Not dwell on it. Otherwise, you'll go mad. You'll never finish anything, and then
Yeah.
you'll be back. Oh, I always want to look forward instead of back in terms of that.
We have a lot of younger, like up and coming artists that listen to the podcast or watch the podcast, and I
Mhm.
always find that it's valuable for them to hear these types of things and hear that professionals have gone through the same struggles and things that they may be experiencing at this very moment. So, if you had to kind of give some advice to somebody who is really serious about getting into comics and wanting to make that their profession, and they're looking to get prepared to try to break in and all of this, like I know the landscape is very different now in comparison to, well gosh, probably over 20 years ago when you broke in, right? Like what is some advice that you impart to younger artists these days? Because I'm sure you have people come up to you at conventions or message you on Instagram asking for
Right.
artistic advice. What are some things that you think up and coming artists should focus on?
This always. Uh, I mean, there are easy ways to answer this. I would say, like of course, like the basic is comics is about storytelling. So above all, you have to understand what storytelling is, and
Yeah,
have to make pages and uh, do your best to tell the story. Like and like everything else is secondary. Like if you draw well, that's a bonus for the story and everything that you do. It will make your pages prettier and everything. But first learn the basics and about how to tell a story, and then develop your artistic skills. And this goes through what you said before, which is like stuff like life drawing, studying from everything, getting inspired by everything, like try to learn to draw everything, because and not shy away from all of that stuff, because in comics it's not like most jobs. Let's say if you're a concept designer or some character designer for a game or whatever, I of course they have their own challenges and everything, but if you're a character designer, you are focused on designing characters or so. But in comics you have to draw everything. You have to do everything from a suburban house to like a imaginary planet, or like designing new creatures, or like in our book, study
yeah.
and learn about insects and bugs and
Which
how they move and everything.
we're gonna get to
Right.
because it's amazing, and I could
so
tell a lot
so
went into it.
awesome. So yeah, learn to draw everything. And breaking in, of course, as you said, has been uh, changing in the past few years. I see some positive things. The one of the things is that now you don't need permission from a publisher or whatever. You can do your own thing. You can
Yeah,
self-publish. It is easier than ever. Getting eyes on your work might be a bit more of a challenge, and there is no straight answer, I guess. So do what you can. Networking is really important. Getting in touch with people like you, people who are interested in what you do, and of course the professionals, trying to get in touch with them, make them recognize you and your work, being pushy of course while doing
yeah,
this.
absolutely.
But yeah, if possible, going to conventions helps, because it's firsthand experience and seeing what artists and writers and editors and everybody else does in this business, and then they get to see your face as well. And then like who knows, maybe the next person that the editor might be calling might be you. So
Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of things, but it's also very case specific sometimes. Like everybody else has a different situation. Not everybody wants to draw the way I do, for example. So they might be doing something else. They want to do some other way of comic making and stuff like that. So yeah,
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 it's a
yeah.
lot to it.
It's a long answer.
No, it's great. And it's like you said, there's no one way. Like that's what
Absolutely,
I'm
yeah.
noticing. Like everybody who's come on here has had a different story about breaking in. Like back in the old days was different because, you know, a little less access, I would say, to the creators unless you could make it to a con. Now you have Instagram, and you never know. Like I've seen, some people like, oh, someone's my favorite artist liked my post, so they actually
Right.
saw their artwork and stuff like that. Or, I find the comic community in general, the artists are fairly approachable. Like you send them a message, they usually message back, and so that there is more access in that regard. But I think it's also difficult because on Instagram you go on and every day I'm seeing hundreds of artists that I've never seen on there before, and it's like amazing looking work, and I'm like, what's going on? Now some of it might be, fooling me. Some of it might be
Sure.
AI or something and I just don't realize, but it seems like there's so many more artists, putting their work out there, and having the ability to get discovered is probably a little higher, but you're also fighting against the fact that there's tens of thousands of other people doing the same thing. So that probably provides a higher level of difficulty in that regard.
Yeah, it is. As you said, it's hard to get eyes on what you do, as you said. Especially nowadays, like everybody's complaining about this from the bigger people with more followers and whatever to newcomers or whatever. Like the algorithms are not, uh, on our side. So
Right.
in that regard, you have to be vigilant, and that's why I'm saying, like forming some sort of community, and like getting to have some friends who do the same thing as you do
Were
is a
you
is a
um
bonus for sure.
were you ever on the digital webbing forum back in the
I
day?
was, yeah, yeah. It
I
it
think
was it was part of my start.
honestly, I was trying to think of where I first saw your work, and I think that's where it was.
Could be.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was on digital webbing because that's when I got to know like Ryan Otley and Ryan Stegman and all those guys was all
Right.
back on digital webbing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. My name back then was, I think, Blackjack on the forums.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
I remember. I remember.
Yeah. I made friends with Ryan Otley and Stegman, and
Yep,
actually Ryan Otley kind of helped me make my break, into
nice.
doing comics. He was doing Invincible back then, and
Yep,
Jay Ferber from was asking Ryan if I was reliable as an artist
yeah.
for
I think
to
Jay.
collaborate
I'm
with
pretty
Dynamo.
sure Jay was on the forum too. I
He
think I
was too,
remember him
yeah.
being on there. Yeah,
So yeah, he got in touch with me, and like he asked Ryan because Ryan knew me and stuff like that. So he said, "Yeah, he's a cool guy or whatever." And so, so that's why how I started Dynamo 5.
yeah,
So yeah, that helped, and I made some good friends over the years who had successful careers. So it's been nice. In that regard, if you can find that kind of community, it's a help.
yeah.
Don't feel bad if you don't have that. Like because I did come from a very solitary uh, comic making life. Like I used to live in
Hmm.
Turkey in Ankara, very tiny community. I was lucky to have a couple friends who were doing the same thing and
Right.
wanted to do the same thing. So we supported each other, and and thankfully through the internet, I got to show my work around. So yeah, uh, being persistent also counts.
Yeah, when you said community, that was the first thing I thought of was back in the day, digital webbing. Like Ryan Stegman and I used to get on Skype and like sit and draw and like look at each other's drawings, and he
Mm,
would give me tips and stuff. And
nice.
I have a lot of fond memories of that forum and everything. Now I feel like the thing people need to look into when it comes to art groups, because there's not really like forums like there used to be.
Yeah.
A lot of it's I'm finding is on Discord. So like Discord, there's a lot of comic artist groups and creator groups that get together and post their art in there and everything. So kind of the same idea, just the formats changed a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I never. I mean, I do have like a couple groups that I'm a member of on Discord, and I feel it's a great way to have this platform where you can share your work. Like if you can find that community and over
Yeah.
there, that's great because like it doesn't involve any algorithms, or nobody's pushing ads on you
Exactly.
and stuff like that. Or nobody keeps on, like all these social media, unfortunately, like they want you to produce content. They want you to be addicted to what
Yes.
you on those screens and scrolling and liking and whatever. So yeah, whatever works is good. So Discord is there. Substack is, I think, growing, and I
Yeah,
think a lot of
Substack's
people
cool.
are getting enjoyment out of that. And I haven't tried it yet, but I do follow a few people, and I like the format. It's
Yeah, I just subscribed to I'm gonna butcher his name. Yannick
yeah,
Paquette.
Yannick Paquette. Yeah,
Yeah. Uh, I just subscribed as a member because he's doing a lot of those drawing instructional tutorials
right.
on there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's
He's
like
doing
a
some
great,
great perspective stuff
yeah, the
lately. Yeah.
perspective one. I'm like, oh, I got to get on there so I can look at this perspective one. So
Yeah, yeah, and he makes it quite entertaining too.
he really
Yannick is a good
does.
friend of mine, so I love his
Nice.
posts over there. You should all follow that. And
Definitely.
yeah, it's very instructive too. So don't miss out on that.
For sure. Well, now the subject that has been lingering in the midst the whole interview, we have to talk about this amazing Bug Wars creator-owned book at Image that you're doing. I just absolutely loved it. Like it was. I won't give any spoilers, but just the thing that really stood out is like just how big you're making everything, even though it's set in a shrunken world.
Right.
Even though we are at the scale of the bugs, like these epic battles and things, and just lots of gore, lots of lots of fun.
Right.
How did the Bug Wars concept come to fruition? How did that start to develop?
Okay. So I mean, how it started was, I would say, I've always been a fan of Jason's work, Jason Aaron, the writer of Bug Wars, and
Yes.
he and I worked on a little bit of tour some years ago on Marvel, and later, we worked on Conan the Barbarian, and later King Conan, and we had a blast working together. And we really were big fans of Conan, so we really enjoyed the sword and sorcery stuff, and we thought it was a good collaboration. And I told Jason that I wanted to do creator on work, and if he was open to do something with me, you know, I asked him to hit me up and stuff. And a little while later, he reached out to me and he said he had this idea for Bug Wars. It was something that he had in his mind for ever since he was a kid, basically,
Nice.
because it's basically some inspired by some of his childhood experiences living in Alabama. Uh, the house and the story, the backyard, it's all based on his childhood home and
Oh, very
everything.
cool.
So yeah, so it's he's got that personal connection, and he said, like, okay, I'm thinking of this story. Basically, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids meets Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So it's this backyard where there's a bunch of clans and small people living there, and like they're having these battles and all these things going on in the backyard. And this family moves back to their family home after having some financial difficulties. And then the kid, Slade Slaymaker, he gets shrunken down, and then he finds himself in this world of tiny barbarians and monsters and everything. And and it was, yeah, I love the concept. And we started working on it. We've been working on it actually for close to 2 years probably now,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah, this
already
is one
coming
of
out
these
now.
things where you look at it and you see like all the research that must have gone into, you know, like you said, as an artist, you have to be able to draw literally anything that the script is necessary for the script, right? So with Bug
Absolutely.
Wars, you're having to draw a lot of different kinds of bugs and things and portray them in action scenes and everything else. Like just how much study did you do? You had to be working away in your sketchbook quite a bit when he told you about this idea.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's been a very challenging and intimidating project, and I can safely say this has been the hardest thing that I've done in my comics career until now, in terms of workload and getting to learn things. Because I did have to research a lot, and a bunch of books over there, like they're all insect books and things like that.
Yeah.
And I've been doing some research online as well. Jason, the same as well. Of course, he's read a lot of books. We even are talking to some entomologists who are, to get some actual facts and, maybe find interesting things that we could use in our stories. So it's been a lot of research and, not only just, difficult in the sense of, trying to learn drawing bugs or whatever, but it's trying to learn to draw bugs from a human perspective, from a shrunken down perspective. So
Yeah.
I have to get to draw them dynamically in different situations and or moving fast or doing fighting and everything like that. And we sometimes have to put figures on top of them fighting each other, and and armies of these creatures all over. So it's a lot of work, but it's
For sure.
also crazy fun.
Do you still are you mainly traditional? Do you draw
Yeah,
traditionally? Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
so even more work. You're not just
Uh,
duplicating.
I think so too. I mean, it.
Because
Yeah,
and I have nothing against digital,
sure.
but I'm just saying like you could have very easily taken the route of duplicating a beetle,
Right,
changing the position a little bit, scaling, warping,
right, right.
but instead you're doing the full process, like you're drawing everything.
Yeah, yeah. My process is a mixed process. I actually do the layouts on the computer. So
Yeah.
like it's usually very sketchy and very loose, and I print that out, and
Yeah.
everything else is on paper. So like pencils, inks, and
Yeah.
everything I complete on paper. But I do find
That's
it almost uh, the same time I would spend on a computer as well, because
right.
for some reason, I just can't, save time working on the computer and drawing digitally. I've done that before, but it never helped me with the time factors.
Yeah, Dan Fraga calls that tradigital. The hybrid and do the
Right,
layout
makes sense. Yeah,
digitally, print it out. Yeah, that's the process I prefer. I just can't get into like doing everything digitally. Like there's something about the tactile feel of the pencil and the paper and the ink drying and everything else that just
yeah.
you just at least so far it can't be captured on a digital input device.
I think so too. I mean, a lot of people do really great things, like in comics and other fields in digital arts. And I've tried it myself. I've done a few books entirely digital, and I've enjoyed it. But I always go back to paper, and
Yeah.
yes, especially the past maybe 5 years, even more so that I've actually gone back to doing painting and everything. So like I'm trying to get more into that side of things, and it feels a bit more satisfying, what I do over there. And like maybe I'm just too old school, but I do like to have the physical end product in hand,
Yeah.
rather than just a digital file.
Well, and just a little advice for, aspiring artists, like you do traditional, you have some originals to sell eventually when you get popular enough that people
For
want to
sure,
buy your stuff, you know?
for sure. Yeah,
Because
yeah. It's
the whole NFT thing didn't catch on enough for people to be making the same amount of money on their originals with all
absolutely.
digital.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a bonus. Not everything sells. Not everybody is very successful in that regard. But whatever is, whatever sells is a bonus. You can't neglect that. So it's something to consider, I guess.
Bug Wars 2 is going to be coming out not too long. I think the deadline for shops to order is like today, maybe
Yesterday
yesterday.
was the final order cutoff for number two.
Yeah.
The first issue went to reprint. I I don't remember the exact dates, unfortunately, but the first issue's reprint comes out in a week or a couple weeks, and then issue two comes after that, the following week after.
So what I wanted to ask you was like to give a little peek behind the curtain. You've been working on it for a couple of years since it came to fruition as far as the concept and
Correct.
everything. How many if you're able to share, how many issues did you get in the can, so to speak,
True.
prior to it being solicited and everything starting to come out in shops?
Right. Well, yeah. as I said, we started working on this about 2 years ago. We started doing all the talks and the basic ideas and back and forth and everything. In the meantime, I squeezed in some other stuff, like I did a Batman story for DC and some smaller stuff in between. While I was starting to work on the Bug Wars world creating and doing actual pages and everything. So, getting to the actual question, the first story of our Bug Wars book is 6 issues long. So when the first issue came out, I already was drawing the sixth issue.
Wow. Okay. So
So
you were
I'm
way
still I'm
ahead.
still working on the last issue. It's a bit thicker than a regular issue. So
Right.
and it's like the ultimate issue of the first story. So it's gonna be a bit of a lot of stuff going on in there. So I'm busy with that right now.
Probably going to leave us on a cliffhanger.
No,
Say,
no,
keep us wanting more, maybe.
I mean, of course, the idea is like, I mean, the first story is a complete issue story, so like you get a full story in the first 6 issues, like from start to end. So we feel it is very satisfying and standalone in a way. However, we will continue doing Bug Wars, so like there will be the following stories coming up, and we leave a lot of stuff without spoiling much. We have a lot of stuff that we are going to be exploring
Nice.
that we touch on in this first story.
I always find that I feel like I can sense when somebody is having a lot of fun on a project. Like I feel like it shows in the level of their art that they're producing, and you can see how much you're putting into it. Am I right in the fact that you're having a lot of fun? Like obviously comics is your job. Like for example, me, I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I teach martial arts. I've been doing that for over 20 years full time as my
Nice.
profession. And even though it's my hobby, it's fun. Like sometimes there's elements of it that are work, like running a business, but at the end of the day, ultimately it's a lot of fun because we're doing what we love, right? So
Right.
I feel like I'm seeing that in your work in Bug Wars, that you're having a lot of fun and you're pouring your heart and soul into it. Is that pretty accurate?
You're spot on, I would say, because yeah, I keep saying this. Like this is one of the projects, and I've been wanting to do this kind of thing. I mean, Bug Wars obviously is Jason's initial idea. Which is something we both developed, together. But I've been wanting to do a greater own and something like this for a very long time. Something like this, what I mean is like world building. Like
Yeah.
creating our own world, everything from the ground up. Like designing characters, civilizations, creatures. Like costumes, everything. Like so. It's been very challenging and time consuming and everything. But like. Uh, Discovering this world in our minds and putting it on paper has been really extremely satisfying and enjoyable. And like on every page I get to do something new, and that is it never gets tiring. Like in that regard, it's very enjoyable.
Yeah. And we should give a disclaimer that even though we mentioned Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, like
Oh yeah.
this is a very graphic, gory,
Right.
very adult
Yeah.
comic. Like
Yeah.
it's really
That's why.
like it
That's
probably, took some people off guard who didn't fully realize what it was.
right. Yeah. That's why we try to say like emphasize on the fact that it's Honey I Shrunk Kids meet Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
So like we do have a lot of violence, some nudity and everything, like crazy stuff going on. A lot of curse words as well.
Yeah.
Stuff we couldn't do in the mainstream, I would say. Probably now we can do
Totally.
that freely. So yeah, we're not holding back in that regard. Yeah.
Well, it's such a unique concept, and it's rare nowadays that I'm like really excited for something to come out every month, and this is on that list. A very small list of things that I'm like just so excited for the next issue to come out. So I really look forward to seeing where this goes, and always as we get towards the end of the show. I have a one more thing I want to ask you, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to, have the platform to let everybody know where to follow you and all that good stuff. But I wanted to ask you, you know, This is creator owned in the sense that you and Jason are collaborating on these ideas. He came up with the initial concept. Obviously, you're doing a lot of character design, costume design, and all of this. Are there any ideas floating in the back of your brain as far as that you've had in your mind over the years of a world you want to create, that you thought about as a kid or anything like that? Because I know most creative people, like, even if they chose the path to focus on art, like, we got a lot of ideas, that go around in there too. So do you have anything
Right.
like that brewing for the future?
Um, for sure. Yeah. Um, I guess I'm not so prolific in, in terms of, like creating ideas or stuff like that, and like doing my own thing, because I've
Hmm.
been used to doing the work for hire stuff for so long. But I really enjoyed the idea of making my own thing for a while. So I do have a couple things that I really want to do at some point. There was this one post-apocalyptic story that I really wanted to do for a long while. It's still lingering there, and there's this totally crazy, for example, sci-fi fantasy kind of story that I want to do, like almost at all ages story, but very crazy. I also wanted to experiment. I want to do my own writing and drawing on some, like anthology stuff, and
That's what I was
hopefully
gonna
that will come up.
ask. I was gonna see, do you have any aspirations to maybe write a little bit?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a lot more work for you, but it's very
Yeah. I
fulfilling
definitely,
to see oversee all aspects of it, I guess.
I definitely want to do that. The thing is, like, I wanted to say is like, I used to do my own writing, like when I was much younger and stuff. But being naive in that regard, like, without knowing and going into it, like in an ignorant way, in some way, you don't care and you just produce, and that's fun.
Yeah.
Now, being in this business for so many years, and like we're having worked with so many great writers and everything, I have this consciousness about how good story might be, and like how it is written, and I've seen it from the greats, so it becomes more intimidating to do it myself. So
Whenever you start thinking like that, just remember when Image was formed.
all right.
And all those guys were writing their own stuff, and it sold great. We all ate it up. You could do it too.
Well, yeah,
But
yeah, I appreciate.
keep the standard for yourself up here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I will eventually do it, and like I will pull the trigger in some sense, and get back to it. But yeah, for now I'm busy with the bug war stuff, and
Yeah.
really enjoying that. And I'm a big part of the creative process. Like in terms of how we build the story and everything in the world. So it's utterly satisfying in that regard. So really pleased.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to being along for the ride on anything
Thank
you
you so
do.
much.
I will be supporting. I want to give you a moment here to let everybody know anything you want to promote as far as Bug Wars. Of course, we're promoting that, but your social media, where they can follow you, best places to keep up to date on what you're doing. The spotlight is yours, my friend. Go ahead, let everybody know.
Thank you so much. Well, okay. So if you want to find me online, I'm almost everywhere with my name at Mahmud Asrar. So basically, mostly I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, on X, on Blue Sky, and a couple other places. But yeah, yeah, those are the places where you can find me. And right now, I'm, as we spoke about, doing Bug Wars, which is the main focus of my work right now, and we're really excited about it. The first issue just came out, second issue is on the way. We really would like to have you try it out and enjoy it. It's been getting some rave reviews and everything, and people seem to be enjoying it, and that makes us even happier. So I guess that's it.
Awesome, my friend. Well, listen, I would love to have you back on, and as we get further into Bug Wars, to chat more about it and see things where things have gone, and maybe we'll be even getting the second Bug Wars story, Bug Wars story by the time I have you on again. It
Awesome.
would be a lot of fun to keep along for this ride. That would be awesome.
It would be my pleasure. Yeah, for sure.
Excellent, my friend. Well, listen, hang out with me for a moment. I'm going to give my little spiel and then I'm going to hit the outro. So listen up, everybody. If you want to go on and subscribe on YouTube, give a like, a subscribe, a follow on Instagram, any sharing you want to do, it always helps. You can find the podcast anywhere you would like, all the major platforms at Nerdy Musings. That's NERDYMEWZINGS. Little different spelling for you. It'd be greatly appreciated. Give us a review if you're enjoying the show. Until next time, everybody, keep it nerdy.